Get started in a minute or two. Welcome, everyone. Webinar will start in a minute or two. Thank you for joining us today. I'm filling in for Avram Grohl, but we have Dr. Beider here with us, and we'll get started in a minute. You should be able to make comments in the chat if you're looking to. We will also try to enable the Q&A functionality. Welcome. We're gonna get started in 1 minute. It's now 2 o'clock. Thank you for joining us today. I see we once again have a large international audience, which is great. Give it 1 more minute. And seems we still have a few people joining us. But I think so today's talk is on Sephardic names in the Ottoman Empire. This is the second in a series of lectures with Dr. Beider, one each month for the next few months. And if you're ready, Dr. Beider, you can get started, and I'll hide my video.
Okay, thank you. I will share my screen. Today, I would like to speak about the development and some major feature of the development of Judeo-Spanish language, or also popularly call it Ladino. And my illustration about its development will, as usual, be often based on my study of names, primarily last names, but also sometimes given names too. So what I will discuss today, it globally corresponds to one chapter in my current project about a dictionary of Jewish surnames from the Ottoman Empire and neighboring territories. So basically it corresponds to chapter number 2 of this book, which is still, which project which is still ongoing. The chapters are written, but I'm working on the finalization of the dictionary part. There will be 2 parts. One, I will speak globally about main influences on Ladino and main features of this language, and second part will concern some specific features that correspond to the pronunciation of Judeo-Spanish or Ladino or Spanish. So what is the a naive or lay approach to the development of Ladino? People who are not professional linguists can think in this term. And actually, this was the opinion also before the development of modern linguistics during the 20th century. So there was the Old Spanish, or also called Old Castilian language. From it came modern Spanish as a direct heir, and Ladino is a kind of byproduct which deviated from Spanish, while modern Spanish correspond to the normal continuation of Old Spanish. Of course, this is a naive approach. If we present this scheme in a more appropriate way according to the linguistic term, it would be much better to say to present it like that. Both languages have the same ancestor. And why this scheme is much better than the previous one? Because between Old Spanish and Ladino, there are differences, some of them major, that are related to innovation in Ladino. But between Old Spanish and Modern Spanish, there are also a lot of differences which are related to innovation internal to Spanish, which were not shared by Ladino. So both are child languages having the same ancestor. If we present the same scheme in a slightly more nuanced way, we can say that, well, even in the Middle Ages, of course, there were some elements of the language of Jews who lived in the Iberian Peninsula that were not used by Christians. For example, a number of religious terms, but all these elements that can collectively be called Jewish repertoire, they correspond to lexical elements, and their number was small, and they were not structural for the language. And similarly, for Christian, of course, there was a large layer, mainly lexical, that were not used by Jews because they were either restricted to some domains in which Jews were, medieval Jews in Spain and Portugal were not related to these domains, or because they were dialectal, and they corresponded to some territories where the Jewish presence was very small, or maybe the Jews were not living at all. If we consider what are the languages spoken today in the Iberian Peninsula. So we have, of course, Castilian or Spanish. It's just the same, just synonyms. We have a large area where people speak Catalan, but they are usually bilingual. They also speak Castilian. There are small areas where people speak also not only Castilian, but also Aragonese, Leonese, Basque, Galician, and of course, there is a different country, Portugal, where people speak Portuguese. This is the today situation. What was the situation in the Middle Ages? If we consider mid-11th century, all this as a major part of the Iberian Peninsula was a part of Arabic Caliphate, and so the main language spoken in this territory was Arabic. And there was already at that period some small kingdoms that were already either gained by Reconquista or Catalan was, this area of Catalonia was almost very quickly reconquered by Christians. So this area, the Muslim presence was really marginal. But here, at that period, all these areas were already gained by reconquest. So the rurals were already Christian, and for this reason, Arabic language was already withdrawn, was gradually withdrawn from this area and replaced with different languages spoken by Christians and that were of Romance origin, Galician, Leonese, Castilian. Basque is not of Romance origin, but this area is really marginal for Jews because there were no, this area the Jewish community were not present in this area. Some 250 years later, there was already a major change, so which was, of course, related to Reconquista. All this area became already Christian. The only Arabic, only Muslim rulers were present only in the Caliphate of Granada, so in the one part of Andalusia. And as you see here, Castilian language, that started with actually a very small area here. Gradually, he was progressing southward and eastward and westward, and so Castilian language, the ancestor of Spanish, was becoming dominant. Some 200 years later, the picture was almost the same. But actually, if we say, if we consider these two pictures can be misleading, because even if the area gained by different languages were similar, languages themselves changed. And during these 250 years, Leonese and Aragonese became very strictly influenced by Castilian. So actually, the only area that was really speaking a language which was a kin language, of course, but still different enough, was Catalonia and Portugal. But this area, even if Aragonese was still spoken and Leonese was still spoken, they were already using languages that they were very close to Castilian, and many features, they acquired already numerous features of Castilian. How it's relevant for Ladino, this story. So, of course, at that moment, the history of Jews in the Iberian Peninsula ends, because in 1492, there was expulsion from all the kingdom of Aragon, kingdom of Castile, which in some 20 years became the kingdom of Spain. In 1496, there was a law in Portugal. In 1498, a law expulsion from Navarra, which is an area here where the one part of the area of Aragonese language. So at the year 150, there were no open Jews left on in this area. If we consider some tax-paying documents from Turkish authorities for three main cities that became destination for Sephardic migration from, we can see here, I put the percentages of different congregations which were organized in these cities according to their, mainly according to their place of origin. And we can see that Jews from Castile, they covered about 12% only in Salonika, 13% in Edirne, Adrianople, and just 7% in Constantinople or Istanbul. For if we put together Aragon and Catalonia, the number of Jews belonging to this community, was already bigger, larger than that of Castile, and Portugal was definitely larger than Jews from Castile. Moreover, Jews from Italy, and mainly from southern Italy, that is today correspond to southern Italy, I mean Sicily, and I mean also Calabria and Apulia. and the Kingdom of Naples, so area called Campania around the city of Naples. So from all this area from southern Italy, Jewish congregation together, they covered about 1/3 of Jewish population in Salonika and Edirne. And I'm speaking about years that were about 100 years later after the exile of Jews from after the Jews were expelled from Iberian Peninsula. There was a small percentage of Ashkenazic Jews, and of course there was a very important factor in Istanbul, the capital city of the country of the Ottoman Empire. More than 1/2 of population in these years belonged to Roman Yod congregations, so congregations that were formed by Jews whose ancestors never came from Western Europe to here. They were local Jews who lived there since the time of Byzantium. So you see here that Jews from Castile were not the majority. And even Jews, globally speaking, Jews from Spain, their total number was bigger, larger than for Italy, but still comparable even to the number of Jews who came from Italy. Of course, Southern Italian dialects were still Romance idioms, so we're not very far from Spanish, but still these were different languages. If we consider names, I made the first level statistics for Ottoman Empire. There are about more than 500 names that I can definitely link to medieval Spain or medieval Portugal. Some of these names were present in various provinces of Iberian Peninsula. And I will provide examples, and I will speak about this in more detail during my next lecture, because the next lecture, which is dedicated to Jewish names in medieval Iberian Peninsula. But without providing examples, of these 500 names, only about 110 are were restricted to Castile. About 150 were restricted to Aragon and Navarra. When I say Aragon, I mean not the small province, but the Kingdom of Aragon. So this includes Catalonia, Mallorca, Valencia, etc. And about 50 names were restricted to Portugal. So again, you see that according to names, Castilian Jews were not the majority, even inside of the Spanish, inside of the Iberian migrants. So what can we say about if we consider this what I said already? It's clear that the old Castilians, so the ancestor of more modern Spanish, and also the ancestor of, according to numerous structural features, the ancestor of modern Ladino, was not the language of majority. It was the language of minority of Jewish population. How is it possible that the language of minority became the language of everyone in a very large part of Ottoman Empire? Because this language during the last centuries was the main language for Jewish communities in northern Greece, in almost all of Turkey, in all of Bulgaria, a large part of modern Bosnia, Serbia, southern Romania, etc. So a very large area where this language was the main daily language of Jews who lived there. The only explanation is that this language had a high prestige. And it is not only high prestige for Jews, because as I told you already, when we consider the development of the Spanish language in different parts of modern Spain, we can see that gradually with centuries, Castilian is gaining not only territories, but it is influencing, it had a very large influences on Leonese, on Aragonese, also on Catalan language, etc. So this high prestige was already true for Christians. It gradually became true for Jews in Iberian Peninsula even before the expulsion, and after the expulsion, this prestige was extremely important for this language to become the main core for the development of Ladino. And again, even if some other languages were native languages for some part of migrants like Aragonese or Portuguese, in many aspects, these languages were close enough to Castilian, and so this, of course, was a factor that made easy the adaptation to Castilian norms, especially for the area from Aragon, because Aragonese at that period was already highly influenced by Castilian itself. Catalan had a significantly less influence on the development of Ladino because at the moment of expulsion, the Catalan, the Jewish presence in the Catalan area was already not so important as it was in Aragon itself and Castilla because of the massacres that concerned anti-Jewish pogroms of the end of the 14th century that made this area, that destroyed numerous communities in this area. In this map, I put the main center of Ladino speakers during the modern times. So Salonika, of course, Istanbul, Edirne, Izmir, the capital city of modern Bulgaria, Sofia, Belgrade, Sarajevo, and Dubrovnik. It's a city which is now situated in southern Croatia on the border of Montenegro. It is not really a city that was important directly to the development of Ladino, but indirectly it was. And I will explain this in more detail. So why I put it in another color, it is because the community, Jewish community here was extremely important in the 16th century, at the beginning of 17th century, but after the blood libel of 1622 that concerned one Jew from this community, the community almost ceased to exist after during the 20s of 17th century. So in modern time, these were the main centers of Ladino speakers. How these centers were populated by Jews. For three main centers that appeared already in my table with the different congregation, so Salonika, Edirne, Adrianople, or Constantinople, which is Istanbul, these were three main destinations for Jews who were expelled from Spain. Also, from if I speak in the purest way. I should not speak about Spain. I should speak about Aragon and Castile. But well, let's speak about Spain after the expulsion of 1492. So these were really the three main centers. Why were the three main centers? Because these were the main cities of the Ottoman Empire at this period, and also because, especially for Salonika, Turkish authority were providing privileges that were making for Jews the stay in Salonika economically and politically attractive. So clearly, these were the three main cities that acquired exiles from Portugal, from Spain, mainly from Spain and partly from Portugal. During the second half of the 16th century, there was another flow that was partly directed to Salonika, but the largest, the most important flow was to Dubrovnik, to the city which is now called Dubrovnik, but at that period it was a city that was the capital city of the independent Republic of Ragusa. And so the city was called, according to its Italian name, Ragusa. This city was, as I said, the capital city of the independent small Republic of Ragusa. This republic was struggling against Venice for independence, and so to be able not to resist to Venice, they made a treaty with Ottoman Empire, and so like that, Ottoman Empire was protecting them. They became vassals of Ottoman Empire, and this situation allowed them to remain formally independent, at least independent from Venice. But this situation, as their situation on the border between the Christian and Muslim world. So on the one hand, people who were living there, the majority were Christians, and they were speaking a dialect of Venetians or of Italian. And this country was surrounded by Ottoman Empire territory. So it was an intermediary place where the trade developed between the Christian and Muslim worlds, which were struggling one against another. But this place was it had an ideal political and economic situation for trade between these two worlds, Ottoman Empire and the different Christian states. And for this reason, it attracted Jews, and many Jews who came there, they came from Italy, but actually many of people Jews who came from Italy, they were not Italian Jews, they were Jews that came from whose ancestors were Jews, became Catholic. So people who are called Marano in numerous documents, historical documents, and well, they called themselves Portuguese Jews. And so these Jews whose ancestors for several generations were formally Catholic, many of them came to Italy, to Ferrara, Ancona, to Venice, and from there they came to Republic of the Ragusa, so modern Dubrovnik, and here, so they settled. This was the second flow, and third flow was already internal. So from Ragusa, Jews, we know this from documents and also from studying names that were, because for Ragusa or Dubrovnik, we have a very detailed information that was kept in archives with names of Jews who were present there. And so comparing these names, to names present in other area, I was able to see some direction of migration. So clearly there was a very close, a very important exchange between Ragusa, so Dubrovnik, and Sarajevo, also Sofia, that was at that period, for several centuries, it was the capital city of Rumelia, which was the European part of the Ottoman Empire. From Salonika, Jews came into all directions, so to neighboring Monastir, now Bitola in North Macedonia, in numerous southern Bulgaria, like a city called Filipol, now Plovdiv, etc. So, and also to Izmir, as a community that became important only during, starting with the second part of the 17th century. And from Istanbul, many Jews populated various cities in Anatolia, so the Asian part of modern Turkey. And from Edirne, there was also a migration to the neighboring territories where the majority was either Slavic in Bulgaria or Romanian in the southern part of Romania. So these were the direction of internal migration. And of course, they were of extreme importance for the development of not only of this local Jewish community, but also for the development of the different dialects of Ladino, and finally for the eventually for the beginning of 20th century, because of all these exchanges, there were different dialects of Ladino spoken in the Turkish part, spoken in the Slavic countries, and third one, intermediary between them, in Macedonia, so covering Saloniki and neighboring cities. And of course, all this, as I said, all this direction of migration can be seen by looking into the list of Jewish names present in this or that community. For example, the community of Belgrade, the capital city of modern Serbia, it was a rather small community initially, but during the 18th and especially 19th century, it became a large community with after the migration from other areas of the Ottoman Empire, from the Ottoman Empire. So what were the influences other than Castilian or Spanish language, generally speaking? Portuguese and Italian, and we can see these influences especially in Salonika and Slavic countries. And I explained to you why the influence of Portuguese was present in the Ladino dialect of this area, because of the second flow that was the flow of ex-Marrano, ex-Catholic Jews who became new Jews, who became Portuguese Jews, and whose daily language was Portuguese, who came to Dubrovnik and then to Salonika and other areas. Can we see this on names? Yes, we can observe in this area presence of some families whose Portuguese origin is out of doubt, named like Correa, Garcia, Guterres, Pimentel, de los Rios. These names betray generations who were Catholic, formerly Catholic. And so these are typical names for Christians, Iberian Christians, that were taken by Jews who were forced to become Catholic, and then after several generations later, when their descendants became Jewish after leaving the Iberian Peninsula, some of them kept these names, so we can, like that, we can distinguish Portuguese Jews quite easily based on these names. Greek, of course, was of important influence to the development of Ladino. It was not that important in Slavic countries, but in the territory of modern Greece and in the territory of modern Turkey, because of the presence of numerous Greeks in all parts of modern Turkey, until the exchange of population during the 1920s. Of course, Greek was a co-territorial language for Jews who lived in the territory of modern Turkey and modern Greece. Greek names among Jews from Ottoman Empire are usually, they do not betray Sephardic origin. They more speak about Roman-Yod origin. And so I will cover them in a separate lecture. But for Ladina, Greek language has influence. So we find a lot of words that were taken from Greek, and not only words. For example, several suffixes were taken from Greek to Ladina, and diminutive suffix ula, clearly of Greek origin. We can find it very commonly in female given names like Hanula, Havula, Rikula, Rosula, Sarulu, Semula, which comes from Simcha. These are usually given names, but some of them became also surnames. For example, Havula was a surname. Another suffix, isa, which is just a suffix in Greek to form some feminine forms. We also find it in some words in Ladino, like, for example, Rubisa, which is wife of a rabbi. Here we have the root, which is of Hebrew origin, Ruby, or rabbi, the same word, of course, and but wife of a rabbi has in Ladina the suffix of Greek origin. Turkish was important for the development of Ladina. Numerous occupational terms entered into Ladino, and actually not only Ladino, also in Arabic, in Greek, in Bulgarian, in all these languages which were parts of the Ottoman Empire. And for surnames, we don't really find influences because Spanish Jews, Sephardic Jews, when they came to the Ottoman Empire, usually they had already surnames. And so if we have names based on Turkish, usually they betray Jews who are not of Sephardic origin on their paternal life. But still, one example, the word bula, which acquired in Ladino the meaning mistress or lady, it is ultimately of Turkish origin, for all Turkish origin, and it became the source for the given name and a rare surname, the very common given name, female given name, Bulisa. What is interesting in this given name, that the root, the name was one of the most common names in the Ladino-speaking communities of the Ottoman Empire during the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, but its root is of Turkish origin, and its suffix is the same suffix of Greek origin that we find in Rubisa. And South Slavic, this was, of course, related only to the territory of where co-territorial population was Bulgarian or Serbian. So one of the influence was again diminutive suffix chi, ucha, and we can find with it in the given names like Davidcho, which is a diminutive of David, Faci is diminutive of Raphael, Liaci is diminutive of Elia, and there are surnames also based on these names, on these given names. So this is the end of our first part. I explained the main influences and main features. Now, I will share with you some elements concerning the pronunciation of Judeo-Spanish and what is the difference in comparison to Spanish, why, and what are the results, what are the illustrations that can be found using surnames. First element is in Spanish, it's extremely important for the development of Spanish. In Spanish, if in Old Spanish there were these three letters, so X that was pronounced like sh, J that were pronounced depending on the position either as J, like J in joy, or like a sh, like no, excuse me, like J or like J, what we find in pleasure. In Spanish, modern Spanish, there was a change for these sounds. And so the first one became pronounced h, like h in the given name Chaim, and became written in a different way. So X was abandoned and it became written with J. For these two letters, the spelling was kept, but pronunciation changed. And so both these letters are pronounced also like h in Chaim. Of course, when I speak about G, I mean before such vowels like E and I. So these were the changes that took place in Spanish, but they took place in Spanish after Jews left Iberian Peninsula. And so for this reason, Ladino was not concerned by these changes at all. And so this is why in Ladino we find all pronunciation in names which came from medieval Iberia. For example, names that were written in medieval sources with X, we still find their pronunciation in modern Ottoman Empire with sh, like Akrish, Bakish, Pasharel. Such words like in Spanish we will say escogito upanigel, but for Jews and for Ladina they pronounced escogito and panigel. And here again in Spanish this is now pronounced with h, but for Jews it is pronounced with j. So Jaldeti, Joya, which is Jewel, and it is surname and also very common given name for women, Jurado, Justo. So Ladino kept the sounds that were present in medieval Spanish for these letters. Concerning this, one example, what is the origin of the surname, which was extremely common in Turkey, especially in Istanbul, and the name is Behar. So it's often written that it comes from the Spanish city of Behar, which is situated in Castile, not far from Portugal. And moreover, I read that at the turn of last century, there was since there are many Behar in the world, they organized a family meeting in the city not to celebrate, but well to mark 500 years of expulsion from what they thought of their native city of Bihar. But actually, for this city, it's called like that. It is pronounced Bihar only in modern Spanish. In medieval Spanish, it was pronounced Bejar, not Bihar. And so it can have it has nothing to do with the surname, which is pronounced Bihar. Behar appears as a Jewish name, initially not as a last name, but as an element that was used between the first name and the father name in all of the Ottoman Empire, we find tombstones with names like you see here. I put some pictures from the cemetery of Istanbul. Jacob ben Behar from the 16th century, Yehiel ben Behar Elia from also 16th century, this is 18th century, Shmuel Behar David. He is also rather recent, Abraham Behar Nissim. So in all these cases, how we should translate it? It means just, it's a acronym from Ben Kevod Rabbi. So it's a son of an honorable Jewish man. So it's in English we can say son and of Mr. someone. So for example, Samuel Behar David would be Samuel, the son of David, just son of. Starting with the end of the 19th century, Jews who were named like that, so who had no surname, and they were using traditional formula for their name is just first name, son of, and the first name of their father. They started to appear in different business directories according to Behar, as if it were their new surname. And so it became a surname. Most likely for these people, their paternal line is not Sephardic, because for Sephardic Jews, when they, as I said already, when they came to Ottoman Empire, a large majority of them had already surnames, and mainly they kept them. So if someone was still not using a family name at the end of 19th century, the chances are high that his ancestors on the paternal line were non-Sephardic, but so either Roman Yots or Italian. But what about the city of Behar? We have a name that really comes from this name, from this city. And the name is not Behar, it is the name Bet-Jarano, and it was one of its bearers was a chief rabbi of the Ottoman Empire at some period. And you see here, I just copied from the entry Bet-Jarano of my current work on Dictionary of Surnames from the Ottoman Empire. It was a very common name in different areas, but of course it is not pronounced Bejarano as in modern Spanish. It's pronounced Bet-Jarano according to the pronunciation in the medieval Spain that was kept by Ladino. Another changes in Old Spanish, there were such letters that were spelled with two S between vowels, or S at the start of the beginning of the word that was pronounced S. And if this S was present between vowels, just one single S, not double S, it was pronounced like Z, Z in zoo. What about modern Spanish? In both merged to S, and so they are pronounced just with as S in both cases. But again, this change took place in Spain when Jews left already, or to be more exact, they were expelled already. And so, of course, this change did not concern Ladino at all. And we find this, that in Ladino there is no merge. We find the as in the Old Spanish S, and it is in Old Spanish Z. Like, for example, you see here names with S, Segoviano, Serrano, Sevilla, Sevillano, Soria, Soriano, Sornaga, and with Z, Casado, Hermosa, Lombroso, Rosanes, Rosilio. Well, actually, some of these names were not names that were brought to as ready-made forms from Spain. For example, Hermosa, it is a given name, female given name, beautiful, that became also in some cases a surname. But pronunciation is still kept, as in Old Spanish. Another example, in Old Spanish, we had a sound that was spelled like a letter that exists now in French or in Catalan. It was pronounced ts, and there was also letter z pronounced as z. In modern Spanish, they are pronounced as a English th. Both of them merged into the same sound that exists in English as at the end of the word both. And in Ladino, again, since these changes took place after Jews were expelled, there were no merger, and there was a different change. So this one became, instead of ts, became s, and this one instead of z became z. And we find this in names like, here I used spelling that were found in medieval documents. So cabeza, besudo, dasa, manzano, taitasak, and with z, gormezano, zaboca, zacuto, zarco. So again, no merge. Curiously, in Spain, we find a very similar situation, like in Ladino, when there is a merger to S and Z of two letters with sounds that were totally different in Old Spanish and were still different in modern Spanish. And this is valid not for standard Spanish, but this merger found in Ladino is found also in dialectal Spanish, and more exactly in Andalusian Spanish. And from Andalusia, this feature was brought, of Spanish, was brought by Spanish migrants who came first with Columbus and then with other travelers to South America, to Latin America. And so modern Latin America has, American has this feature, similar to Ladino. It does not mean that Ladino came from Andalusia. It's just the same development independently in Ladino and in Andalusian Spanish. So why Andalusian Spanish was so important for Spanish of Latin America? It is because often the migration were, as you will see in this map, the migrants were going first to Canary Islands, and so they were going from Andalusia. So like that, Christians who lived in Canary Islands, they were speaking Andalusian dialects, and from Canary Islands, they came to mainly to what is now Dominican Republic, and then so Santo Domingo, and from it they went to what is today Mexico and South America. Another change that took place in Spanish, there were two different letters and two different sounds in Spanish, Old Spanish, B and V. In modern Spanish, the spelling is kept, but pronunciation changed. Both of them, depending on the position and depending on the dialect, are pronounced in the same way, either as B or like so the sound which is does not exist in English. And what about Ladino? Of course, again, since this change in Spanish took place after Jews were expelled, we don't find this merger in Ladino, and so we find names with B and we find names with V. And not only spell it this way, but even pronounced. So bendit, benveniste, vivas, buena vida, bueno with B, and with V we find vidal, vital, and the second part of buena vida. Another change that was even more, took place even more early in Spanish, all words that in ancestor of Old Spanish, so in Latin, had F at the beginning of the word. In Old Spanish, it became H, that was pronounced H, And in modern Spanish, it is kept in spelling, but is not pronounced anymore at all. So this was a change in Castilian that is kept in modern Spanish, but with the abandon of the sound of this letter. In Ladino, often we find the same phenomenon, which is not a surprise, because in Spanish it was completed in Castilian, in Old Castilian, this change was completed by 1040s, 1400s. That means before the expulsion. But still in Ladino, in some words or in some dialects of Ladino, F is maintained. And for example, we find name Falcon, Funes with F. And we also, a very curious example, we have a name Hayon, which is of ultimate Arabic origin, but for which we see also, we find in Ottoman Empire a variant Fayon. So this variation between H and F, it is related, of course, to this phenomena peculiar to Spanish. But so how it's possible that F was kept? It is not because Ladino was different in Iberian Peninsula. Not because Ladino was different in Iberian Peninsula, but because Ladino was also influenced by Portuguese, Catalan, and one part of Aragonese, in which this F is kept. And so it's not a surprise that we find, for example, in Salonika, where were, as I said, many Portuguese Jews, we find names like Fernandez, and also a variant of its Hernandez, which is correspond already to Spanish pronunciation. And we also say, we find these names, meaning Smith. So Herrera, which is Spanish, and Ferreira, which is, of course, Portuguese. So here, it's a direct influence of Portuguese. And even these were just examples of names, but if we consider even the map of dialects of Ladino, we see that we find words with F only in this area. And so this is the area of Slavic countries and Salonika in this area. Why? It is because, as I explained, the second flow that was second by chronologically, that in this area, numerous Jews came from Portugal. And actually, even for Aragon, also the Jews who came from Aragon, their presence was larger here than in other parts. So this is why here we find influence of Portuguese and partly Aragonese much more present than in other parts of the Ottoman Empire. Last example, Old Spanish, we had double L in Ladino. And here it is already not a change in Spanish. Here it's an innovation, internal innovation in Ladino. It became pronounced as Y, like the Y in the word boy, or even this letter was came to zero sound. And we find numerous examples of that in names in the Ottoman Empire. So, for example, the original name was Amarillo, so yellow, and we find in Ottoman Empire such variants as Amarillo or Amario, Escao, that is spelled in all the old documents with double L, Gallego, original word was Gallego, etc., etc. So we have numerous examples. I could continue, like, for example, Sevilla. It's if you don't know the development of Ladino, it's not directly on the surface, but it's actually Sevilla, which is the original form of this word. Caballero is Caballero. And what is important is that since Ladino was a common language for all community members in numerous cities of Ottoman Empire, names that originated in other countries, so that did not come from Spain or from Portugal, they were influenced by the same process that took place internally to Ladino. And examples are a very common name in Ottoman Empire, and it is known only in the Ottoman Empire, the name Modiano. Recently there was a Nobel Prize writer from France with this name. The original name is Modigliano, and so the name is of Italian origin. It was a common name in Italy, and at least one or maybe several branches came to Ottoman Empire, and since they lived, they acquired Ladino as their daily language, and so when this process of changing of L, soft L, to absence of language took place in absence of sound took place in Ladino, these names was also influenced. Another example is Ottoman Empire name Pollastro, for which the ancestor was a name from southern Italy, Pulastro, exactly the same change of double L or soft L to yeah. Thank you for your attention. And so now, if you have questions, please send it post them to question and answers part of this Zoom. I will check already what was sent. First question, why Italy had this high number? Well, I said that Italy, what part of Italy was concerned mainly? It was southern Italy, so the areas that correspond today to Calabria, Campania, Puglia, and the island of Sicily. So Sicily was part of the crown of Aragon, and so Jews from Sicily were expelled in 1493. So 1 year after the expulsion of Jews from Spain. And actually at that moment, if we consider the demography of Jews who lived at that moment in the Italian peninsula, the number of Jews who lived in Sicily was about 25, according to some estimation, it was about 25,000. And the number of Jews who were present in all other areas of modern Italy was approximately also about 25,000. So Sicilian Jews, by its size, was comparable to the size of Jewish communities in all other areas of modern Italy. And if we consider other community, Apulia and Calabria, so the southern part for continental Italy and area around Naples, all of them also had a large Jewish community. And from this area, even if they were not part of the Aragon kingdom of Aragon, they were first expulsion that took place in 1510, and the final expulsion took place in 1541, when all this area was part of Kingdom of Naples. And so since this area were home for numerous Italian Jews, they left to Ottoman, mainly left to the Ottoman Empire. So it was approximately the same period. So for Sicily, really the same period as for Spanish Jews, but for Jews from southern continental Italy during the next decades. Another question, is Cyprus excluded or included? Well, for me, in my studies, it is included, but actually there was a Jewish population in Cyprus It was significant only during a very short period, and then for various reasons, the community ceased to exist. So for the Ottoman Empire, the Cyprus community was really marginal. Another question, Bessarabia was an Ottoman protectorate traded to Russia in 1812. Given the Tartar presence in Crimea, do you think the Iberian expansion would be a strong possibility in Bessarabia? It's a very interesting question. And I tried to address it. It was also my working hypothesis that maybe in southern Bessarabia, especially the area that today belongs to Ukraine, so the city of Belgorod, but before it was Ackerman. So this area was really part of the Ottoman Empire, and there were Jewish population there. And when I studied the earliest documents from the start of the 19th century from Bessarabia, and specifically from these areas, I was not able to find any trace of Sephardic Jews. I have an impression that all Jews who lived at the starting with the second part of the 19th century in Bessarabia, they came from other areas, from neighboring Galicia, from Podolia and Volhynia, so Russian Empire, and this small community that existed in this area since the Ottoman since the Ottoman times, I have an impression that they withdrew from this area together with the Turks. And so this was a very common situation that when Christians were gaining territories from Turks, from Muslims, and so, for example, Bulgaria was becoming a Christian state, Greece was becoming a Christian state, and so the southern Bessarabia was taken by Russian from Ottomans. It was a very common situation that Jews from this area were leaving this area and going to the area that still belonged to Ottoman Empire, because the behavior of the Muslim authorities was much more friendly than the behavior of new states, which were highly nationalistic and were often anti-Jewish, especially this is true, of course, for Greece after the Greece independence. Of the 3 dialects of Ladino in the Ottoman Empire, you described which one was spoken in Rhodes. It was the same as in Izmir or Ottoman or Istanbul. So basically, it's a dialect that was common for all of modern Turkey and for numerous islands of that today belong to Greece. Salonican was really found only in neighboring, it was a very small area, Salonika, and neighboring cities like Monastir or Skopje, which is the capital city of Macedonia. Is this lecture recorded? I don't know. I hope this, but I don't know. The organizers, Jewish Gen, maybe can answer this question. Was there ever a marked migration from Ottoman Empire to the Netherlands? You can see this by studying the book. I don't remember the authors, but of course, this is a very well-known Verdoner and Smet with the names of all Jewish marriages in Amsterdam. And so usually we see the places of origin in comparison to Portugal, to France, to Spain, to England, with Ottoman Empire, migration was rather marginal. Is it possible that the Spanish Ladino surname Teixeira would have morphed into the surname like Teixler, and as the population moved east and some surnames became more Germanic sounding? It's quite unplausible, not plausible, because, well, first of all, Teixeira is not a Spanish Ladino surname, it's a Portuguese name. It was really used only by Portuguese Jews, so not Spanish at all. But, well, this is minor. What is more important is that then these people, there was no important migration from the Ottoman Empire to the Kingdom of Poland. There was just one small area, the city of Zamość, where there was a community in the southern Poland, so not far from Lublin, where there was really a Sephardic community organized with people invited by the local Polish Catholic magnate to come and to create this community. But this community existed for more than 100 years. There was some, the majority of its members were actually Portuguese Jews from Italy. They were not speaking, I don't think they were speaking Ladino. I think they were speaking either Italian or Portuguese. And they very quick, this community disappeared, and these people became merged with the local Ashkenazim that were much more numerous. And all this merger take place well before Polish Jews acquired surnames. So when I was studying names of Jews from Poland, I found some names from this very small group, like Castiel, for example, but these are rare exceptions. No, usually names which are German sounding, they are really names acquired by Ashkenazic families that has nothing to do with Sephardic ancestry. There were some few families in various parts of the Russian Empire whose name was originally Sephardic, but then it became Russified. For example, there was a very common name, common enough, Abugov, which is Abuaf, it's a Portuguese name, Abulafiev, which is, of course, Abulafia, famous Sephardic name that was Russified. Or Abarbanel also existed, some families in the eastern Belarus, but these are rather exceptions. My family name is Bichacho, or Bichachi. From the records that I have found, is it of an original Sephardic name? Yes, for sure. Bichacho is one of the names that was brought by migrants as a ready-made form from Iberian Peninsula. Again, a question about roads. Does onomastic give any indication of migration patterns for roads? I will make a statistical analysis. I did not make it specifically for roads yet, but I will include it definitely in my book. Once my dictionary portion is ended, hopefully during this year, I will provide some statistics about various major communities and what are the parts by names concerning their ancestry. At any case, this is my objective of this project. And many names were of Italian origin. For example, Capeluta clearly came from Italy, but I was not able to find any reference to Capeluta in Italy. I think it is from Italy. There are some names that, if they do not appear in medieval Iberian forms, sources, and if they correspond to words that sound typically Italian. Capelluto is one of this example. Palladino is another example. Gerardino is a third example. I think they belong to Italian Jews. And so why I was not able to find them in Italy, maybe because the sources we have for southern Italy, except for Sicily, they are not comprehensive. For example, for all of Campania, so the area around Naples and other cities around Naples, we have not a single source that would provide a representative list of names. So people who lived there and who migrated to Ottoman Empire, if they had surnames, I cannot see that they really came from that area because I don't have sources for medieval Jews who lived in Campania. For Apulia and Calabria, fortunately, there was one Italian historian and archive worker who published several books. So for them, the situation is much better. But still, the sources for this area are not representative. For Sicily, the sources are almost exhaustive because of the publication by Shimon Simonson of 18 volumes of different deeds of Sicilian Jews. When you discuss the three main areas of migration to Turkey, did those areas coincide with certain geographical areas of Spain or Portugal? For example, did people from southern Spain tend to migrate to one geographical area? The answer is yes, specifically for southern Spain. Well, so when we see historical documents that show how Jews were migrating from medieval Spain, fortunately, there are some documents, and many of them were summarized in an excellent study by Chaim Beinart, published in 2002, about Jewish expulsion from Spain. So this author, Israeli historian, he explained what were the routes used by Iberian exiles. And so there were two main routes. One was from southern Spain. And of course, because of the logistics problems, Jews from southern Spain tended to migrate to neighboring Morocco. And so many Jews from Castilla, from southern Castilla, they came to such cities as Fez, Tanger, Tetuan, Rabat, Salah, etc. So Morocco was the main destination for Jews from southern Spain. Jews from Aragon or from Catalonia, they left the Iberian Peninsula by ships also, but these ships usually were directed to Italian peninsula. So the main destinations were Naples and Pisa, the two seaports of Italy, of Western Italy. So the closest, actually big seaports for closest to Spain. And they could not continue to, they did not stay in these areas. They continued, many of them ended up in Ottoman Empire, leaving Italy. But for example, all of Western Spain, northern Spain, they usually left not by ships, but working. So we walked to Portugal, which was the closest area, and one part came to Navarre, with that was close to, which is close to Aragon, And again, from this area, Jews were expelled 5 or 6 years later. For Portugal, it's a separate story. We will not discuss it now. So for this were the places, but for Turkey or Greece, we can this explain why the presence of Castilian was not dominant, because numerous Castilian came to Morocco and rather to migrating to Italy, and from Italy to Ottoman Empire. Some other names, some other questions. My name is Mizrahi, and my ancestry is from Spain. We are Sephardic, and my grandparents spoke Ladino. But Mizrahis did not go to any of the countries you mentioned. During the expulsion, Mizrahis went directly to Palestine. Well, I don't know. I have no information about that. So the first element is I don't see any Mizrahi name in medieval Spain. For me, the name Mizrahi is a typical name for Ottoman Empire, and they were acquired by Jews in Ottoman Empire whose ancestors were not Sephardic, but whose ancestors, according to this name, they were Mizrahi. So they lived we were all, for example, from modern Iran, from modern Iraq, from one part of Syria, from Georgia, etc. So is it possible that some ancestors came from Spain? They joined a community that was not Spanish-speaking, that was local community, and from this community, when they came and joined a Ladino-speaking community, they acquired this nickname Mizrahi. This is a possible scenario, but I think the most plausible scenario is that, of course, a large majority of people called Mizrahi during the 19th and even 18th century, and who lived in the Ottoman Empire, they were Sephardim, according to their culture, to their language. The only non-Sephardic part was their paternal line that kept the trace of someone who was really Mizrahi and not Sephardic. But all other, because all these Jews merged with Ladino-speaking community, exactly as in case of numerous Jews who were, of course, Ladino-speaking, but who were using names revealing their Italian origin. Of course, during the last centuries, they were normal Sephardic Jews, according to their culture. And only their name was betraying the origin of their paternal line from Italy. What happened to all the Castilian Jews? Did they mostly stay in North Africa, where were less than we thought? Well, Castilian Jews, of course, a large part went to Morocco. A very large part also came to Portugal. And so they became the basis for what later became Portuguese Jews. So when at the moment of expulsion, the largest flow of exiles went not to the Ottoman Empire, not to Morocco, but to Portugal. And Portugal was the main destination. And so these Jews, many of them were from Castile. And so they became, some of them succeeded to escape by Portuguese ships at the end of the 18th century, but a big majority of them became, at least formally, Catholic, and then their descendants went as Portuguese Jews several generations later to Italy, to Amsterdam, to London, to West India, to Hamburg, and Ottoman Empire, Saloniki, Dubrovnik, etc. Interesting question. I discovered when one branch of my family named their children Todros. The family lived in Berdichev, Ukraine, now Ukraine. I think the name is Greek. Yeah, you are right. The name is of Greek origin. How common was the route from Greece to the Pale of Settlement? Well, this is a totally different story. Todros, as Kalonymos that became the basis of Yiddish name Kalman, they are two remnants that survived in Ashkenazic community already in the medieval Germany, so these names, Kalonymos and Todros, they were used during the Middle Ages in Spain, in France, in Germany, and ancestors of all of these Jews, so not Greek, but the ancestors of these Sephardic, French, so Sephardic, Ashkenazic Jews from Western Germany, since they were using these given names, how they acquired these given names of Greek origin. The Greek origin is ultimate Greek origin. So they inherited these given names from from their ancestors. And I'm speaking about Jews in Spain, France, and the medieval Rhineland, so in Western Germany. They inherited this given name of Greek origin from the antiquity, when in the Mediterranean area, especially in the territory of modern Italy, in Rome, and other places, Jews were who lived there were using Greek as their firstly daily and then even their liturgy language. And so from that time, a very few names survived. And Todros and Kalonymos are two examples of names that survived in various communities, Sephardic and Ashkenazic. So these names really points to antiquity. Any information about migration from Salonika back to Italy? Yes, actually, if we look into the in the archives of, for example, Ferraro, Ancona during the 16th century, we can find that because of the trade using often Ragusa, so modern Dubrovnik, as an intermediary, there were Jews who were coming not only from Italy to Ottoman Empire, but there were also Jews who were coming from Ottoman Empire to Venice, Ancona, Ferrara. So during these trade exchanges, there was migration already in the 16th century. So people were migrating to Ottoman Empire. Some of them were going westward to Italy, but of course the flow was mainly directed from Italy to Ottoman Empire rather than from Ottoman Empire to Italy. And to Italy, numerous Jews, Sephardic Jews from the Ottoman Empire came only during the 20th century. So during the first part of the 20th century, when I was studying for my book about Italy, I was studying names of the Holocaust victims from Italy. Very often people who were living in Milano, in Naples, so the largest cities of Italy, many of them, and who died during the Holocaust, they came themselves. They were born in Salonika, in Istanbul, etc. So this was rather recent migration. Some very healthy Jews, like Camondo, for example, they came in even before, and they were going into different directions. So between France, Italy, and modern Greece, Turkey, so Ottoman Empire, we were migrating in various directions. But these were not mass migration from the territory of the Ottoman Empire to Italy. It was mainly in the 20th century. Were there Jews in Sicily who remained there as conversos after the expulsion? Yes, of course, numerous Jews in Sicily. An important percentage of Jews became converted, and we don't have a history like for Marana community in Spain. We don't have any mass return to Judaism. So mainly these people merged with local Catholics. So some of them, individual families, we joined Jewish community later, but it was not a mass phenomenon like it was true for Portugal. When would you say Ladino and more broadly Sephardic culture became so dominant that it included Jews with significant ancestry from southern Italy, Greece, Turkey, etc.? My understanding is that this occurred mainly in the 17th century. Do the few modern Romagnot community also have Italian Jewish ancestors? My answer is yes to both assertions. So it was mainly during the 17th century that, for example, in Istanbul, the Romagnot community merged with the Sephardic one, and Ladino became the main language for everybody in Istanbul. But southern Italy, no, it was even before. At the end of the 16th century, we have some writing by local rabbis from Saloniki who says that at the end of the 16th century, Italian Jews were already speaking Ladino in Salonika. So for Italian, because Italian is close to Spanish, because it's also Romance language, because of the prestige of Castilian, so they merged culturally and linguistically much early. But Romagnot in Istanbul, it was later because, as I said, in the 17th century, they still were about one half of the community of Istanbul. When is your book on Sephardic names coming out? I'm working on it for already 6 years. I hope to finish with in 1 year, but it's still my hope. What does the surname as Ashkenazi tell about the migration to Turkey? Well, if you remember, on one of my first slides, I presented statistics for Istanbul, for Edirne, and for Salonika. And in the last two places, we were about, so in Salonika and Edirne, where was about 10% of local Jews who were Ashkenazic. And with Jews who were Ashkenazic, they were present in various places of the Ottoman Empire. They had no surnames, and usually, since they were a minority, their very common nickname was Ashkenazi. But in Ladino, this word, because in Ladino, sh was Hebrew sh, shin, was pronounced as s until recent time. So traditionally, it became not Ashkenazi, but Ashkenazi. And so why it became Ashkenazi, not Ashkenazi, I think it's another step of name starting to look as a Spanish name, because we have numerous Spanish words starting with ask or asp or est, and not many with ast. But we're not sure why it at what moment this name became pronounced by Sephardic Jews with initial Ashkenazi. So clearly, the pattern when we see Ashkenazi, the family is clearly Sephardic for many generations, but an ancestor was an Ashkenazic Jew on the paternal line. Maybe a few last questions. Is there any evidence of Sephardic community being influenced by neighboring Ashkenazi community in terms of changes to their names and language spoken? Yes, and we have this example actually here. You see, there are some slides that I prepared and I did not show. You see here the letter tzadi was pronounced. It's still now there are dialects in Ladino. When I say now, I mean 100 years ago. So tzadi is pronounced s in two dialects that correspond to Saloniki and to all of Turkey, but it is pronounced ts like Ashkenazim in Bulgaria, in Serbia, Bosnia, etc. How it's possible? It's clearly influence of local Ashkenazim. And the first traces of this change of pronunciation of Hebrew we find in the middle of the 19th century in Belgrade. So I see names like Ben Zion, Tzevi, Matzliach, Matzah, all with ts and not with s. And why it could take place specifically in Belgrade. Belgrade was the place where the proportion of Ashkenazim was the highest in the Ottoman Empire. So they were not majority was Sephardic, but still there were many Ashkenazim. And so I can explain why, but in any case, this was the influence of Ashkenazim here on the pronunciation of say. But this is rather minor, of course, and you see it was dialectal, just in the area where some Ashkenazim lived as well. Globally speaking, Yiddish or Ashkenazim had almost no influence on the development of Ladino.
So, Dr. Beider, do you want to end here or take one more question? Or?
Yes. Yeah, interesting question. So you mentioned Hermosa as a last name based on Spanish given name, not known in medieval Iberia. Do you think this name belongs to the descendants of Spanish expatriates or to local Italian Jews that who adopted that name based on the Ladino language? I think the second possibility is more plausible, because, as I said, a majority of Spanish of Sephardic migrants, they had surnames, and majority of them did not lose their surnames. They can continue to use them, especially this is true, of course, for such large centers as Salonika, as Dubrovnik, as Edirne, Istanbul. In smaller communities, where at some moment the Sephardic Jews were not majority, but they were also Italian Jews, there were also some Romagnol Jews, it is quite possible that some Sephardic Jews lost their surnames that they brought together with them during the migration. So, and then during the 19th century or end of the 18th century, some of them acquired new names, often based on the given names like Avram, David, Yehuda, etc., etc. So this is one possibility. Now, a possibility which is, I think, more plausible is that, as I said, at some moment, all local Jews of Italian, of Romagnol origin, they merged with Sephardic Jews. They started to use Sephardic given names, and so one of this family could acquire, start to use a given name Hermosa, which is meaning with a very nice meaning, beautiful, and then one of the descendants of when one of these women called Hermosa started to use this first as nickname and then as a last name. So in principle, both scenarios are possible. We can imagine that some Sephardim lost their name and then acquired during the end of the 19th century, but even more plausible is that someone with non-Sephardic paternal line acquired this name. Maybe last question. If the family has the surname Cordova, can we assume they come from Cordova? I think ultimately yes, but to Ottoman Empire, very often they came from another place, so they received already their name Cordova, not at the moment of expulsion, but this name existed already in medieval Spain. So they came from Cordova to another place in medieval Spain. They acquired this name, and then when they migrated, the same is true for Toledo or Toledano, for example. Toledano is more common for Morocco, but Toledo is specifically Ottoman Empire name. What is the meaning of the family name Shaltiel? Well, Shaltiel is the last name which is based on the Hebrew first name Shaltiel, but I was not able to find references to the use of this name as a given name in the Ottoman Empire. So most likely, and I do have references to this name already as a last name, as a family name in medieval Spain. So most likely it is a name brought already as a family name from Spain.
So,
okay.
If we're good here.
Okay, I think let's finish maybe. Yeah.
Or yeah, is there any last question? Yeah. Unfortunately, we probably can't get to everyone.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry for people whose question I did not answer. So we have a constraint of time. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beider, on behalf of JewishGen and all the attendees. This was a great talk. You'll be back on March 27th with Jewish names in medieval Spain and Portugal, I believe. So everyone should watch out for information on that. And JewishGen has another talk coming up next week, but on Thursday, March 7th at 2 p.m., exploring the Izmir Turkey census with Michael Wass. So thanks again very much, Dr. Beider, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.